Some of you may have wondered why I did not mention the death of Putin's political opponent, Alexei Navalny, in last week's report. It was because I strongly suspected there was more to the story, and I was waiting for that information to come out. And last week, it did, when global research reporter Stephen Karganovic published the article Alexei Navalny, An Opportune Death Hypocritically Mourned, in which Stephen points out a number of very suspicious circumstances surrounding Navalny's death and the media coverage of it. In my opinion, though, Mr. Karganovic also missed connecting some important dots. Navalny was a Russian lawyer, anti-corruption activist, and vocal critic of President Vladimir Putin. Navalny was imprisoned in 2021. Since then, multiple trumped-up charges were laid against Navalny, the cumulative sentences for which would likely have kept him in prison for the rest of his life, had he died of old age. At 2:19 p.m. on February 18th, the website operated by the Federal Penitentiary Service of Russia for the Yamal-Nenets Autonomous Area reported the death of Alexei Navalny in prison colony number 3. It was later revealed that Navalny died of a heart attack caused by a blood clot. The same kind of blood clot that would get me banned on some social media platforms if I mentioned the cause, but you know what I'm referring to. Since we know that some of these products are far more lethal than others, it would have been easy to ensure that Navalny received one of the batches that would have made his death only a matter of time. Karganovic provides, in his article at Global Research, the following timeline of mainstream media reporting on Navalny's death. The first report, by Tobias Billström of Sweden, came out just 15 minutes after the Penitentiary Service post. The report accused Putin of being behind Navalny's death. That is to say, the report alleges that Navalny was murdered. In the following 3 hours, a total of 15 mainstream media reports on Navalny's death appeared across the European Union, Eastern Europe, and the U.S. Karganovic raises the excellent point that the only public mention of Navalny's death was a post on the Federal Penitentiary Service of Russia's website, and that only for the Yamal-Nenets Autonomous Area. Stephen astutely observed that it would be very unlikely that mainstream media reporters were keeping close tabs on the Russian penitentiary website, such that they could have reported Navalny's death within 15 minutes of the posting. This suggests someone tipped them off. I should also mention that when I tried to access the penitentiary website, despite several attempts, it timed out every time. Furthermore, all mainstream media sources which reported Navalny's death within hours either suggested or outright stated that he had been poisoned. Yet there was no way an autopsy could have performed in such a short period of time. Navalny died in the exercise yard of a heart attack. Here are the dots that I believe Stephen failed to connect. First, all mainstream media coverage strongly suggests that Putin was responsible for his death. But Navalny was already in prison, where he had been largely silenced and was likely to remain there for the rest of his life. Remember the Nord Stream gas pipeline sabotage in September of 2022? That was another case of mainstream media and globalist-controlled governments trying very hard to make it look like Russia was behind the explosion that crippled 2 of the 3 undersea lines. I pointed out at the time that this made no sense. Putin had already shut off the gas. What could he possibly have to gain then by blowing up his own multi-billion-dollar pipelines? Putin is definitely not one of the good guys. He is well known for corruption and human rights abuses. But he is also not on board with the globalist agenda. In fact, there are unproven rumors that he's been working behind the scenes with former and possibly future U.S. President Donald Trump to oppose the globalists, and that, in fact, the attack on Ukraine may have been partly an excuse to destroy a number of U.S.-controlled biolabs there. So Putin doesn't like the globalists, and they don't like him, and they are clearly looking for ways to sway public opinion against him. Remember, too, that Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, is a graduate of the World Economic Forum's Young Global Leaders program, and as much a WEF puppet as Justin Trudeau is. So we have a number of questions, the answers to which lead to a conclusion that, while it can't be proven, certainly seems to fit the facts. First, Navalny was clearly murdered. But why would Putin kill him? Navalny had already been effectively silenced, and he had a great deal of public support, so a murder laid at Putin's doorstep could only serve to create a martyr and greater public sentiment against Putin. Second, we know that the globalists don't like Putin and have a history of working to sway opinion against him. And third, the rapid release of news reports by mainstream media, not just within minutes of an obscure online posting of Navalny's death, but strongly suggesting he had been murdered, long before any actual forensic evidence of that could have been available. Here's the final piece of the puzzle. Who controls mainstream media around the world? The globalists. So, murder Navalny with a certain-to-be lethal injection. Then alert controlled media around the world and provide information to suggest he was murdered long before such information could have been available. And that, right there, was their mistake. They gave their state-sponsored mouthpieces information they couldn't possibly have had at that point in time, unless the people who killed Navalny told them. I can't prove any of this. I simply provide the facts and a theory. I'll leave it to you to draw your own conclusions.